Did you know that there is a word in the Welsh language to describe a force or an energetic undercurrent which moves in our world in a fluid manner, like water or like air? It flows like a river or gently blows like a breeze. And that word, of course, is Awen. And Awen doesn't just exist in the world around us. It is something that can take hold of us. And when it takes hold of us, it offers us the chance to birth something profound, whether that is profound art, specifically poetry, or perhaps prophecy, to prophesize what's to come in the future. Or sometimes it's to birth profound magic. And did you know that sometimes there is even a word for those who are considered touched by the Awen? And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, a croeso. Welcome to my channel. My name is Mhara Starling. I'm a witch who lives on Ynys Môn, the Isle of Anglesey, in the very tippy top of the north of Wales. If you are absolutely new here, you've never watched a single one of my videos before, then croeso, it's so absolutely wonderful to see you here, and I hope you'll stick around and like what you see. However, if you're a returning subscriber, then hello, it is absolutely wonderful to see you back again. Quite a while back now, I made a video about the Awen and what Awen actually is. And during that video, I talked about a phrase, a term, Awenydd or Awenyddion, and I said that I would eventually get to making a video about the Awenyddion, and then I took rather a long sabbatical from YouTube, so here I am finally making that video. So if you have not watched that original video on the concept of Awen and what Awen exactly is within a Welsh cultural context, then go and watch that video now. Although just for the purposes of this video, let me quickly define what the concept of Awen is. And I do mean quickly because I have an entire video exploring what Awen literally is, so you can go and watch that if you want something deeper, but for now let's just quickly summarize what Awen is. The term Awen, in and of itself, is an interesting word because it relates to the breath, etymologically speaking, which is not that surprising when you consider that there are many words in any language across the world that relates to either spiritual principles, magical principles, or some kind of understanding of an energetic undercurrent that connects us all that is related to the word for breath, or for inhaling breath, or for breathing in general. Think about in English how we say inspiration, and inspiration is literally etymologically related to breath. The word spirit and spiritual also derive from words that relate to the breath and to breathing. And similar to all of that, Awen relates to the breath. It's impossible to fully translate the word Awen into English into one succinct word. Many people have tried over the years. If you were to look it up in a dictionary or you were to look up a quick translation of the term, most sources will tell you that it means muse or inspiration or something of that manner. But when we pull it down to one single word like inspiration, there is a loss of a little bit of context as to how we utilize the word Awen within the Welsh language today and how it has been used throughout history. Awen is so much more than just inspiration. It is inspiration that is carried on the breath and has a divine quality to it. It is otherworldly in nature. It is connected to the other. Old Welsh poetry tells us that Awen starts its life in the otherworld. It is sculpted by divine hands and then distributed throughout the otherworld until eventually, because the otherworld and our world is intimately connected, it makes its way into our world in a flowing, fluid form similar to water or air. And when it enters into our world, we breathe it in. It takes hold of us and it moves us, it shapes us. The most powerful prophets and poets and artists and practitioners of magic within our myth, lore, and history have been associated with the concept of Awen. One of the primary figures or forces that is in touch with the concept of Awen is Ceridwen, who I also made a video on recently. Ceridwen is a goddess, a witch, a badass Welsh woman in general, and she is also referred to in the Bardic tradition as Mam yr Awen, the mother of Awen. She, of course, also gave birth to Taliesin, one of the most renowned legendary bards in Welsh culture, who was born from drinking of the cauldron of Awen from Ceridwen. So it's a concept that is intimately tied to both art, theatricality, poetry, specifically poetry, but also magic, because within Welsh culture, these things aren't separate. They're very much one and the same. They're deeply, intimately connected. You can't separate the two if you are approaching them from a Welsh cultural context. So for today's video, the definition of Awen that we're working with, and this is a very broad definition, is the blessed breath of life, a flowing, fluid, energetic current which empowers powerful poetry, art, prophecy, and magic. And it's important that we do define that term because the word we're focusing on today is awenydd or awenyddion. Awenydd is singular and awenyddion is plural. And this is a term that describes a type of people who were touched by the Awen, those who were in deep communication or convocation with the Awen. But where does the concept of the Awenydd come from? Where does it originate? And what bearing does it have in terms of Welsh myth, lore, and history? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore right now. So before we delve into the concept of the Awenyddion fully, I have to first introduce you to a guy, a historical figure called Gerald Gymro, or at least that's what we call him here in Wales. He goes by a few names. You might know him as Gerald Gymro, Geraldus Cambrensis, or Gerald of Wales. Now, Geraldus Cambrensis, Gerald Gymro, Gerald of Wales, whatever you might call him, for the purposes of this video, we're just going to call him Gerald, because that's his Welsh name. He lived between 1146 and 1223, and he was a priest, a historian, a royal clerk, a traveller, and a writer. And he's important because he is the person who first recorded the term Awenydd in written form. So the earliest written reference we have to the term Awenydd and Awenyddion comes from the work of Gerald Gymro. Specifically, the term derives from a piece of writing that is sometimes referred to just simply as the itinerary through Wales or the Itinerarium Cambriae, but also from another text called the Descripto Cambria or the Description of Wales. Both of these books were written by Gerald of Wales, Gerald Gymro. In around 1188, Gerald Gymro was asked to accompany the Archbishop of Canterbury on a journey throughout Wales, and through this journey he wrote about the entire experience. And this is a text that goes all the way back to the 12th century, so it gives us a really interesting look at medieval Wales. And what's really, really fascinating is that he discusses many things beyond just describing what the country looks like, but he describes the people, the culture, the language, and various elements of lore from the country as well. It's in this book that we see various different references to elements of our mythology and lore. There's an entire story about a man who goes to live with fairies within this text. There's also an entire reference to Anglesey, Ynys Môn being the mother of Wales, Môn, Mam, Cymru. So there's a lot of things, a lot of elements of Welsh myth, lore, and history that derive from this text, or at least were first written down in this text. Obviously, some of these things might have been part and package of culture in Wales long before they were written down, and probably were, because Gerald Gymro was writing about what he was experiencing, not just making things up. Although it's important to acknowledge that he might, of course, have flourished a little bit of his writing, but still, it still provides us with an interesting window into the past. And there's one chapter in particular within this book that is extremely interesting. If you are to buy a good copy of The Itinerary Through Wales and The Description of Wales today by Gerald Gymro, you'll find the chapter that I'm going to refer right now is usually under the heading of chapter 16, or chapter XVI in Roman numerals. This chapter is titled Concerning the Soothsayers of this Nation and Persons as it were possessed. Oh, isn't that just a thrilling title? In this chapter, he discusses a grouping of people that he interacted with or that he heard about when he was in Wales, and those people were the Awenyddion. So here's exactly what the text says about the Awenyddion. There are certain persons in Cambria, which is an old term for Cymru, Wales, whom you will find nowhere else, called Awenyddion, or people inspired. When consulted upon any doubtful event, they roar out violently, are rendered beside themselves, and become, as it were, possessed by a spirit. The description he gives of the Awenyddion is absolutely intriguing. So deeply intriguing, especially if, like me, you are a little bit of a lunatic. And I mean that in the phrase somebody who is deeply interested in the mysteries of life and the magic of life. What he's describing in this chapter is a group of people that individuals would have approached when they were dealing with certain crossroads or issues in their life and they needed direction. So it's not too dissimilar to the people who go and see psychics today. The people who go and get a tarot card reading from Psychic Sally down the road, or a crystal ball reading, or who call the psychics on the psychic hotline. Essentially, this is the medieval version of that. They would go to these people because they would offer them some form of advice, and the advice didn't come easily. From the description provided by Gerald, we get the idea that the Awenyddion entered into a trance-like state, and in this trance-like state they were connected to something beyond themselves. Because of their relationship to this stream of other which allowed them to connect to the force of Awen, to the force of divine prophetic inspiration, they were able to deliver profound messages to people. Although Gerald Gymro does point out that these messages were never straightforward. So, different perhaps to how you might approach a psychic today, who will pull a tarot card and tell you that that means no, you should not get back with your ex. The Awenyddion would have been a little bit more mysterious in the way in which they delivered their readings. They would have uttered all manners of strange phrases and statements, things that would, in the moment, make absolute no sense to the people that were receiving these readings. But if they were to spend their time decoding these messages slowly and patiently, they would, in turn, receive a message that did make sense, making sense out of nonsense. I'm particularly interested in the idea that these people were taken over by something. They were taken over by some form of connection to spirit. As Gerald Gymro said in that statement, they become, as it were, possessed by a spirit. And this is interesting to me because it reflects something rather profound. What this term is essentially describing is a type of people who had a connection with something beyond themselves. And we see people like this show up in almost every culture across the world. People who can journey and go on trance-like states in order to receive profound prophetic wisdom. Now, Gerald Gymro does go on in this section to state that some people who refer to themselves as Awenyddion receive their visions and their prophecies and their insights from these divine sources, from mystical otherworldly sources, via their dreams. And again, that's something else we see show up in a lot of folklore, mythology, as well as folk practice and spiritual and religious practices, as well as magical religious practices from across the world throughout all of time. And here we have a specifically Welsh expression of that. And the fact that it's tied to the concept of Awen is, to me, rather intriguing, because Awen is already a concept which is rather mystical in its nature. Throughout poetry, throughout mythology, we're meant to associate the Awen with prophecy, with poetry, with art, but also with magic. So these are people who are touched by something that allows them to see beyond themselves, that allows them to connect to something beyond themselves as well. Gerald Gymro then states that as they're in this trance-like state, in order to snap out of it, in order to get back to reality, they have to literally be shaken or scared out of their experiences. There's also a mention about how they placed sweet milk-like substances on their lips in order to induce their visions and their prophetic insights as well. Now, unfortunately, Gerald Gymro does not go into any more detail than that, really. He does go on to compare the Awenyddion to the soothsayers of the classical world, the soothsayers of ancient Rome and Greece and various other cultures across the world. He also compares them to the prophets and those who are divinely touched in the Bible. And even more interestingly to me, he also goes on to compare these people to Merlin. Now, Merlin has his origins in Welsh tradition, or specifically in Brittonic tradition. He's a figure who starts out his life as a madman who retreats out into the forest, and in his wild state, as he's immersed in the Caledonian forest, he gains prophetic insight. He essentially becomes one with the Awen, becomes an Awenydd, and through that becomes a great prophet. And of course, Merlin then, throughout legend and lore, develops into the wise man, the wizard, the sorcerer that we know and love today. So the fact that Gerald Gymro here is specifically comparing the Awenyddion to Merlin and the story of Merlin within its, I assume, original context is rather interesting. It says a lot about how these Awenyddion were viewed. Now, this is the oldest written reference we have to the concept of the Awenydd, and we're supposed to infer from this that this was probably something that already existed in Wales long before Gerald Gymro wrote about it. This is just common practice, especially among the rural folk of Cymru. But then more written sources tend to use the word Awenydd in a variety of ways as we look through history. Various poets, famous poets, poets such as Dafydd ap Gwilym, use the word Awenydd to mean somebody who is in touch with the bardic power of Awen, somebody who is divinely inspired, who is capable of reaching into the very depths of the otherworld to draw out the Awen and create powerful poetry and prophecy. And that's essentially the way that the term gets used throughout all of history until we reach around the 17th and 18th centuries. And then we see the term start to shift to mean something else. And in particular, it becomes deeply associated with Druidry. But of course, all of this starts with one guy, and that guy is called Edward Williams, who is also known by his bardic name, and more commonly known by his bardic name, of Iolo Morganwg. Now, Iolo Morganwg is a complicated figure. If you are to look him up, instantly some people will say that he's just a forger who made everything up, whereas others will say that he was divinely touched and perhaps led to create the work that he created. I take a more nuanced approach to Iolo Morganwg. Yes, he was a literary forger, but also there is something rather profound and enigmatic about his work, and obviously that's true because it's gone on to inspire so much to the modern day. The modern culture of Druidry would not exist without Iolo Morganwg. So much of how we perceive modern paganism today would not exist if it were not for Iolo Morganwg. And beyond that, we wouldn't have as many cultural traditions and as much pride and love for our culture here in Cymru, in Wales, if it was not for Iolo Morganwg. He was instrumental in the development of the National Eisteddfod, which is our largest cultural festival. He essentially gave to us a way in which we could look at our culture and feel more than just shame, which is what we felt for a very long time about what it meant to be Welsh, because we were seen as the barbaric others within the island of Britain, those who speak a barbaric tongue and those who have a barbaric backwards culture. Iolo Morganwg essentially came along and said, hold on, no, we are the ancient inhabitants of this island. We speak a language which is derived from the old Brittonic tongue of this island. We should not be ashamed of who we are. We should celebrate who we are, and we should not try and conform to become this homogenous idea of Britishness, which is essentially just Englishness. We should celebrate our unique ways of being as Welsh people and how we have such amazing local lore and knowledge and wisdom. And yes, he forged a few things in order to prove his point, which I don't necessarily think was needed. We have a rich history as it is. But I do wonder sometimes if something was channeling through Iolo Morganwg. I don't see him as just a pure evil forger who made things up and ruined our culture, but I also don't see him as the pure, Jesus-like figure who came to save us either. I think he's a complex figure, but I do think we owe him a lot. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. Let's get away from Iolo Morganwg for a second, and let's talk about how he represented the concept of the Awenydd. So within Iolo Morganwg's work, in his writings, which you can find various different books such as Barddas, which talks about his writings and gives examples of his writings. They're scattered letters that have been brought together to create one document, essentially. He describes an Awenydd a little differently to Gerald Gymro. He describes the Awenydd as an aspirant or disciple of the Bardic order. Essentially somebody who is not quite yet fully a bard, but somebody who is aspiring to be a bard. And this is within the context, of course, of the Welsh bardic tradition, the tradition of poetry, song singing, and prophecy singing that we have here in Wales, which extends throughout the mists of time. So essentially, his definition of Awenydd is somebody who is on a journey in search of the Awen, somebody who is searching out the Awen in life, and who, if they are successful in their search for Awen, will eventually become a bard, and perhaps continue developing into something rather amazing. Within Iolo Morganwg's system, there was essentially a way in which you developed yourself within the bardic tradition. You started off as an Awenydd, as a disciple, and then you would move up the ranks and become a bard, aka a bard. From there, you might move onwards if you were able to put in the work, the effort, and had the skill to back it up, to become a prifardd, which is the chief bard. And then from there, you might develop even further to become a derwydd, or a druid. And of course, Iolo Morganwg was instrumental in the development of modern Druidry, so we start to see a little bit of a similarity here to a lot of modern-day Druid orders, who of course have their own version of a ranking system that you move upwards on. We'll get to that in a second. There were individuals within Welsh culture and beyond who were inspired by Iolo Morganwg's work, and they went on to write various different texts. And in these texts, you see this idea start to ring through, but you also see developments and deviations from that idea, rather than just being a disciple or student who is studying to become one who is touched by the Awen. An Awenydd essentially became one of the divisions of what it meant to be a druid in the ancient world. Now, this is from Report on Manuscripts in the Welsh Language, which is a text edited by J. Gwenogfryd Evans, where it states, Divisions of the Ancient Druids. 1. Derwyddon, Druids. 2. Beirdd, Bards. 3. Awenyddion, Ubates or Vates. And this is really interesting because this is something that echoes a little piece of knowledge we have from classical writers writing about druids. They wrote about how the druids might be classed as one of three classes. They might be seen as a bard, a druid, or an ovate. And these ideas, these classifications, were never explicitly in classical texts said to be a leveling system. It wasn't that any of these were above the others. It was just three different types of druid, essentially. It was the druids who were the ritualists and the philosophers, the bards who were the singers of song and the keepers of lore, and the ovates or the vates who were those who could divine the future, those who could look into the future via divinatory methods. So it wasn't like a system that you had to work through. You didn't start at one and then develop to the rest. These were just three different types that you might come across. But of course, in the modern world, that was fused with Iolo Morganwg's idea of developing through this system, and that's where we get the modern druidic idea of working your way through the system of bard, ovate, and druid. Essentially, figuring yourself out, developing yourself until you become something greater than yourself. You start off as a bard, which is the base level, and then you develop your divinatory skills and your profound skills of looking into things on a deep level, and you become an ovate, and then finally you elevate to the level of druid. But of course, it's important I really make it clear that this is a modern-ish idea, this idea that you worked through levels. None of the ancient sources we have about the ancient druids stated that you ever worked through these levels. The ancient sources do talk about these three types, or some ancient sources do, but never is it seen as a ranking system or as if you need to work your way through these different levels. That, like many aspects of modern Druidry, was inspired by the work of Iolo Morganwg and then fused with the knowledge that we have already. And what's interesting is that those texts, like the J. Gwenogfrid Evans version, essentially use the word Awenydd to describe what we would describe in modern Druidry today as an ovate. Somebody who is proficient in the art of divining or in the art of seeing things on a deep level. And that brings me essentially to the closing part of this video, which is what does Awenyddion mean today then? If you've been following along with this video, then you will know by now that Awenyddion in its original sense just means somebody touched by the Awen. It then came in the texts of Gerald Gymro to mean somebody who performs a form of trance-induced readings and such, so they would divine the future for people by entering into trance and delivering these readings. But for the most part, somebody who was described as an Awenyddion was somebody who was divinely touched by the power of Awen, by the holy and blessed power of Awen, that force that moves throughout our world in a fluid manner. And that meant that if you were in touch with the Awen, you could give birth to profound prophecy, poetry, or magic. And then, from the works of Iolo Morganwg onwards, it became this idea of being somebody who was seeking the Awen, somebody who was on a journey to seek the Awen, and that eventually became the modern construct of ovate in the druidic orders that we know of today. So what would an Awenyddion be today? Well, nobody owns the term. Nobody owns the term. It's a term that is embedded in Welsh culture and has an interesting and fluid meaning in and of itself, just like the Awen. It is somebody who is divinely touched by the Awen, but how the Awen moves through you is absolutely subjective. I might breathe in the Awen and I might birth my books, or things like this video. You might breathe in the Awen and decide you want to write the most profound music. Somebody else might be touched by the Awen and they want to write poetry, and somebody else might be touched by the Awen and they just want to create the most elaborate magical ritual that will protect people or do something amazing. To me, my personal definition of Awenyddion in the modern world is somebody who is actively working with the flow of Awen. Not just allowing the Awen to drag them to where they need to go, but somebody who is actively practicing a form of magic or spirituality which brings them closer to the Awen, which brings them closer to the flow of Awen. And that's a very broad understanding of Awenyddion. It can mean so many things. I've met numerous people who identify as Awenyddion today, and some of them do read the future and divine, and some of them are just really good poets. There's every shade in between of that. So the concept of the Awenyddion is, to me, just as fluid as the concept of Awen in and of itself, and I love to see how various different druidic orders might implement the idea of Awenyddion, whether they use the word Awenyddion or whether they use words like ovate and such as well. But within the specific context of Welsh culture, to me, somebody who identifies themselves as an Awenyddion is somebody who is actively seeking the flow of Awen, and hopefully birthing profound poetry, prophecy, art, or magic into the world. What awakens the Awen within you? In what way does the Awen express itself in the world through you? let me know in the comments down below. And that brings me to the close of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little different to the videos I usually make. And I just want to remind all of you watching that none of these videos would be possible if it were not for the support of my patrons. So over on Patreon, I have various different supporters of various different tiers who allow me to do all this. My Patreon supporters receive access to a community of people who have an interest in Welsh myth, lore, and magic. I usually hold a class or an online live session once every month to all of my patrons. I also post exclusive videos, podcasts, articles, essays on there that only they can see, which delves into the same kind of things I delve into in my videos. I run courses on there, and the courses are all recorded, so if you join now, you have access to a back catalogue of loads of courses and past classes. My Patreons also have exclusive access to a Discord server and a private Facebook group where they can ask their questions and interact with a community of people who have an interest in these same things. And overall, more than that, you also support me and you gain access to me. So if you're interested in supporting my work and in seeing more of this, then do head over to patreon.com/Mhara Starling or find links down in the description below. You can join for as little as a few pounds a month, or you can give as much as you wish. And that just allows me to continue doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much to those of you who are already Patreon supporters. You mean the world to me. Diolch o galon am wylio. Thank you so much for watching. Wylan ni chi tro nesa. We'll see you all next time. Diolch. Thank you for being here this evening. If you enjoyed, do consider checking out my Patreon, where I offer exclusive courses and classes. And of course, check out my books, my podcast, and my other offerings. See you all soon.